The ground trembles. Dark shapes burst from the thickets. They surge forward like a living flood, sweeping away crops, livestock, and every trace of peace. Not wolves, not soldiers, but wild boars, ferocious, intelligent, and fearless. When night falls, the nightmare rises, and the battle to protect the homeland begins. Wild boars, they reproduce at an astonishing rate. A single sow can give birth to as many as 12 piglets in one litter, and just a few months later, those offspring are already capable of breeding themselves. In less than 5 years from just one original pair, the population can explode into the thousands. They don't just eat crops, they tear up the land, destroy ecosystems, and wipe out anything in their path. Each year in the US alone, the damage caused by wild boars exceeds $1 billion, but money has never been the most frightening part. What's worse is that they are intelligent, difficult to trap, and completely unafraid of humans. When the sun sets, they vanish into the darkness. When the sun rises, the nightmare begins again. They don't just cause destruction in the daylight. When night falls, entire herds of wild boars rise like ravenous phantoms, silently weaving through forests and farmland. By dawn, they leave behind deep furrows in the soil, young trees uprooted, and herds of livestock driven into panic. With a sense of smell 7 times stronger than a hunting dog's, they can detect the scent of food from kilometers away. A cornfield just beginning to tassel, a sweet potato patch newly sprouted. In a single night, it can all vanish as if it never existed. What's truly terrifying is how quickly they learn. A trap set yesterday will be avoided today. If one falls, the rest scatter instantly and never return to the same path. This is no longer just a battle against a wild animal. It's a war against an intelligent, relentless enemy that never tires. The helicopter shook violently as it shot over the sun-scorched fields. Its rotors sliced through the air, the roar of the engine drowning out every other sound. Below, the shadows of wild boars scattered in chaos, trails of dust swirling up like smoke on a battlefield. From above, the landscape looked like a living map. Rows of corn torn apart, fences broken and toppled, winding trails carved by the herd through the brush. Every track pointed in the same direction, toward where the boars were fleeing. The pilot tilted the control stick, sending the helicopter sliding sideways to give the gunner at the side door a clear angle. In an instant, the scope locked onto the image of the lead boar. Massive, its bristled hair standing on end, its body caked in mud. The shot rang out, cutting through the roar of the wind. The lead boar jerked, then collapsed to the ground. The rest of the herd panicked, scattering in all directions. The pilot immediately banked the chopper, dropping lower to drive them into an open area. It was a relentless chase. In the air, every maneuver had to be precise to the second. On the ground, the wild boars fought desperately to escape, charging through thorny bushes and jagged rock crevices. But from above, every attempt to flee was laid bare. Within minutes, several more went down, not out of thrill or sport, but because this was the only way to protect the crops and stop a growing threat. Hunting wasn't confined to the skies. On the ground, farmers weren't sitting idle either. After a long night of lying in wait, as the first light of dawn tore through the mist, the fields of Texas came alive with the rumble of pickup truck engines and the metallic click of shotguns being loaded. They weren't just protecting their crops, they were safeguarding the very future of this land. The hunters moved into an area where signs showed a herd of wild hogs had passed through the night before. The mud was still fresh, deep hoof prints stretched in long trails. A clear sign they were still nearby. The air was thick with the damp scent of trampled grass. And in the distance, a faint rustling came from the brush. A hand signal was given. Everyone froze instantly. They split into two groups, quietly closing in. The wild hogs had no idea death was drawing near. They kept their heads down, rooting up the soil, tearing young corn stalks from the ground, chewing noisily. The opening shot shattered the calm of the morning. The herd bolted in every direction. Gunfire cracked again and again. Engines roared in pursuit, and the pounding of boots on dry earth merged into a chaotic symphony of the battlefield. A massive boar with long, razor-sharp tusks charged straight into the brush in a desperate bid to escape. But it didn't make it. A bullet slammed into its shoulder, sending it stumbling before it collapsed. The ground was stained with mud and blood. In an instant, the hunter's eyes, sharp as blades, swept across the dense forest. A herd of wild boars was frantically charging forward, trampling dry leaves and tearing through bushes in a desperate bid to escape. But they had no idea. On the hillside beyond, another group of hunters lay in wait, silently ready for the final strike. The air was strung tight like a bowstring, just waiting for the gunshot to break the silence. The gunshot rang out. The wild boars scattered. The chase had begun. The hunt didn't last long, but it left everyone who witnessed it breathless. The farmers knew this was only one battle in an endless war they would have to fight. The hunt ended when the sun was high overhead, the guns lowered, and the fields fell silent once more. But this silence was only temporary. Somewhere in the thickets, the surviving wild boars still lurked, and one day soon, they would return. The farmer stood in the middle of the land he had just defended, his calloused hands gripping the gun tightly. He knew this was not the final victory, but merely a single battle won in a long war. Every boar taken down today meant one less threat to the crops, the livestock, and the safety of his family. From above, the helicopter turned back toward base, leaving behind chaotic scars carved into the earth. On the ground, the hunters gathered their spoils, their eyes a mix of exhaustion and determination. The battle against this invasive beast would go on, day after day, season after season. In this land, no one expected peace to last for long, but as long as the gunshots still echoed and people still stood shoulder to shoulder, hope remained intact, and the fight to protect their homeland was far from over.